Welcome to The Sign Off, the marketing podcast for marketing people who want to chat about marketing. Every 2 weeks, we'll be chatting about a topic and how brands are using it to see if we'll give it the sign off. I'm Liz Hawkins.
And I'm Lydia Jones. We've made marketing and now we teach marketing and are generally a little obsessed about marketing. So if you want to listen to two Gen Xers talk about marketing in today's crazy old world, stick around.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. A deep dive into a particular brand, one that's a particular favourite of mine, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Coca-Cola is probably very close to my heart because I grew up overseas, and Coca-Cola, the holidays are coming advert, was the start of the festive season for me. So I am Camp Coca-Cola.
And I too are Camp Coca-Cola because that's just what I've always drunk. I don't really drink that much, to be honest, although sometimes I have a bit of a craving, a very unusual craving that happens every maybe once a month, and then I buy a can of Coca and I drink it.
Do you drink full fat Coke?
I do drink full fat Coke, yeah. I have drunk Diet Coke in the past, but I've heard that you're meant to drink full fat because it's the lesser of two evils.
I actually really like the taste of Diet Coke, though.
Do you?
Yeah, especially when it's really, really icy cold and it's hot. And it's like, perfect.
Yeah, it's all about the situation. You know, got to be cold. I'm not sure about the ice. I quite like it straight out of the can.
I like a moderate amount of ice. I'm not like US amount of ice.
Oh, yeah, no. 1 or 2 cubes is fine.
Very British about the ice. Okay.
Lemon or no lemon while we're here?
Lime.
Lime.
Yes.
Interesting.
I do like lime.
All right.
Yeah, I think
I'm going to try that next time.
Yeah, it's nice. I don't drink Coke or Diet Coke with alcoholic beverages. I wouldn't.
Do you not? Rum and Coke?
No.
No.
So it is a non-alcoholic drink for me. We had a chat last night and we were talking about Coke and Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to talk about how their brands came into being and also their competitive edge.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting age-old rivalry, isn't it? Coke versus Pepsi.
I think it kicked off because we saw that advert.
The new ad, yeah.
The new ad, which is very funny. I think it's funny anyway. And I do like some of the very cute prods rather than the very upstanding proper advertising. I think I like the tongue-in-cheek stuff. It's very funny for me.
Yeah, it's great. We'll get on to that probably at the end, won't we? Till we finish on our hurrah. Whoa, let's talk about the latest Pepsi ad, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, super.
Let's start with history. Where did Pepsi and Coke come from? But actually, from our research, Pepsi is not challenging particularly well, let's be honest.
Pepsi's got a much lower market share.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola is completely dominant in terms of the soft drinks category. But they started roughly around the same time. So Coke is about 130 years old and Pepsi's not far off it. I think they're about 12 years behind Coke. What was it originally marketed for, Liz?
Pepsi was for indigestion.
Right. And that's very surprising because
it's a bit grim. I'm not sure I wonder if it was fizzy then.
Oh, I don't know.
It might not have been.
Oh, maybe actually, yeah. Because that's quite a sort of advanced technology, isn't it?
Exactly.
Stuffing bubbles into drinks. I don't know how it...
Whereas Coca-Cola was named after the cocaine leaf that was put in it and the South African nut that gave caffeine, cola with a K.
See, this is why I love doing this podcast, because you just learn all sorts of interesting things.
Yeah.
I did know that Coca-Cola originally had cocaine in it, or the cocaine leaf that the thing is, and that obviously got taken out pretty quickly, didn't it?
Early 1900s. So
okay.
They went from having the coca leaf, which actually did have cocaine in it, so about 3.5 milligrams, whatever that is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a massive amount.
Not like 3.5 wraps. No. That's a lot. And expensive. Crikey.
Then what they did was they took the full leaf out and used leaves, so they had no cocaine in it, but it gave that taste. So it is what it is nowadays with no cocaine in it.
Yeah.
Just
so
caffeine.
They still use a sort of derivative or sort of a nod, right?
For the flavour.
For the flavour, because it's got a very specific flavour, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
And I've heard it's like under lock and key, and all of the franchises, they get the concentrated juice and they're allowed to add water to it. Is that right?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Post-mix comes in like syrup and you shove it in and it mixes with fizzy water, basically.
Yeah, and that's why Coca-Cola tastes different in different countries.
Yeah, I'm sure that the mix... Yeah, and that's why I don't like post-mix. And also, don't forget, if you're post-mixing...
What do you mean post-mix?
So, you know the little gun?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You'll get somebody's had soda water before or tonic or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's got to be in a can for me or a bottle. That's fancy for me. Oh, I'm going up in the world. Bottle of Coke, lovely. Can of Coke, very nice.
Yes.
I also heard, just before I forget, some of my brain works, is that Coca-Cola have a special blend specifically for McDonald's, because to account for the melt of the ice, so it still tastes like Coca-Cola with the ice, because they so McDonald's and maybe other fast food restaurants get a special thing.
Maybe it's particularly in the US, I would imagine.
Yeah, I thought it was all over, but I could be making that up.
So Coke is
ancient, 130 years old. It's the most consumed soda in the world. Estimated 1.9 billion servings a year across 200 countries. So that's quite a lot.
It is, yeah.
Pepsi basically is a Me Too soda. There's not much difference in it, in sort of like the difference between Coca-Cola and Red Bull, right?
Let's be honest, they were pretty genius positioning themselves as Coke versus Pepsi when Coke is definitely Goliath. They did a really good job of positioning themselves as number two. But the gap is huge. Yeah, Coke has got 17 to 20% market share since 95, whereas Pepsi has seen a drop from 15 in 95 down to 8.3.
8.3 in 2023.
Yeah.
So 8.3 versus roughly 20. And Pepsi's in decline, and Coca-Cola's pretty much maintained over the last 30 odd years. And then obviously other players like Dr. Pepper have grown, and Sprite. Well, Sprite is owned by Coca-Cola as well, isn't it? And then obviously Diet Coke is kind of maintaining as well. So it's Coca-Cola is an absolutely massive dominant force in this market. That's not a surprise to anyone, is it?
No. Coke's positioning was all about joy and having fun and living your life, whereas Pepsi was positioned as the drink with food.
But there's sort of a lot around this kind of generational spirit. So Pepsi have relied on partnering with celebrities.
Yes.
So, and they have been, it tastes great with this thing. So the line doesn't necessarily reflect the association with have a Pepsi with this, but perhaps some of their campaigns have definitely done. But I just remember all of those campaigns with like the Spice Girls and Britney Spears and Beyonce and all of those celebrities. So they're going very much down the celebrity route, whereas Coca-Cola...
80s, it was Coke Is It. 2000 was Enjoy. We had the Coke Side of Life. Real taste, uplifting refreshment, open happiness.
Happiness, that was what it was, yeah.
Share a Coke.
I think the rivalry really came into play in the 70s.
With the taste test.
Exactly. So Dave Trott, who's a creative director and quite a prominent thinker in the advertising industry, he writes a blog and he's got loads of books out. He's really great. I really like him. And I nicked this off of him and I use it to teach planners how to think about creative briefs, right? Or problems, market problems, really. He's got a 3-question model and he starts and he says, okay, what are you doing? Are you growing the market or are you stealing share? Right?
Yep.
Let's figure that out. Okay, next question. Are you targeting current users or trialists? Okay. And then are you going to focus on brand or are you going to focus on product? Now, Coca-Cola, traditionally, and especially in the 70s, with the famous advert, The Hilltop it's called, I want to buy the world a Coke. Yeah, you roll your eyes, it's so cute.
Nostalgic, yeah.
It's super nostalgic, isn't it? And it's wonderful. I mean, it's one of those adverts that is like, at the time, well, in context, it was very anti-war, actually. It was because the Vietnam War was raging. Anyway, McCann was the agency that did that. So there you go, a little bit of history, but it was very much about coming together and peace. It was a peace thing, right? And that's a very brand-led ad, right? Okay, yeah, they're holding a Coca-Cola, but they're not talking really about any functional benefits or sort of taste differences or whatever. So that was very much the sort of, okay, we're going to grow the market because you're the leader. That's your responsibility as a brand. If you're the leader, you need to grow the market. You can't steal shares off all your little people, can you? So grow the market. Well, everyone's had a Coke, so it's current people. So we're going to remind people to try and drink more of it. And then it's brand, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Pepsi sort of tried to copy that and they did a bunch of sort of more brand-led stuff. and it didn't really work for them. And then they figured out, oh no, we need to do something different and we need to do the taste test. So that's where the Pepsi challenge came from, because they realised, oh no, we just need to steal share off of Coca-Cola. We're going to do it for Coke drinkers, so trialists. That's the second question. We're going to focus on product. It tastes better, or does it taste better? So that's what they did. And they've done the Pepsi taste test, or the Pepsi challenge, and that's their most famous campaign. And it was successful for them, I think.
Because it was in the 80s?
It was in the 70s, yeah, late 70s and into the 80s. And they did a whole series of them, yeah. I think the original was like in a shopping mall somewhere.
Yes, I remember that.
So it was funny because they made you sip, right? Sip this or sip that. And then some, I don't know, taste scientist came back and said, actually, the sip test, Pepsi wins, but you wouldn't want to drink a whole can because it's slightly sweeter, or it tastes sweeter. So actually, in reality, Coca-Cola is more preferable.
Oh.
Yeah.
I also think that when they were doing, I mean, it was a huge campaign. I think they were very lucky at the time because there's only 2 channels. Channels with adverts. So they did well with that. And also, don't forget that they really leveraged the fact that going to the shopping precinct or shopping centre was a big childhood teen thing. That's what you did on a Saturday afternoon. So I like that. I think it was clever.
Absolutely. And Coca-Cola is very family orientated, whereas I think Pepsi, with all of their celebrity stuff and the taste test thing, I think they went after the youth market, really.
They did, yeah, I think.
And it's a classic challenger brand like strategy, isn't it? To position yourself against the biggest competitor or your biggest market leader.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, you're saying that Pepsi goes on after the celebrity, and Coca-Cola did so well with that Hilltop kind of advert that was all about peace.
Yeah, unity, everyone's together.
The Kendall Jenner one didn't go well with Pepsi and the whole peace thing, did it?
Oh dear. So I did look into that because I knew that it was in-house. So the in-house agency did it. It's not actually the creative agency in-house. So the one, it's called Sips and Bites, I think, which is quite a cute name for an in-house agency for Pepsi. It was actually their content agency or content department. And I don't want to denigrate like content marketers. But I will. It was tone deaf, basically, wasn't it? Absolutely tone deaf. And they got punished for it, unfortunately. And the advertising agency industry was crowing with delight because it was like, that's what happens, companies, when you in-house stuff. You actually need professionals who know how to make advertising. But there are benefits of in-housing. I'm not denigrating all of in-housing, but it was a bit of a relief because it's worrying for advertising agencies. Every client in-houses, we're going to be out of a job.
Exactly.
We're going to have to work at clients.
So when did Pepsi start? So they moved on from the Pepsi challenge and they started to do a little bit more subversive, kind of funny, more challenging, or bigging up the rivalry, I would say.
Yeah, I think the challenger brands generally, and there's ways and means of doing it, but you are poking the big, behemoth that is your market leader. So the classic challenger, when Mac was a challenger, was the Mac versus PC ads, right? I'm a Mac, you're a PC. Hilarious. There's a whole series of them and they're really, really funny.
Yeah, really witty, weren't they?
Yeah, brilliant. So you can be really like pokey and fun, and Burger King do that with McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's has a completely different strategy because it's obviously the market leader and is doing very well. I mean, Burger King's adverts are very, very creative. I don't necessarily know if that translates into growth for them, but the advertising agency loves them. I mean, the advertising industry loves them.
Yeah, I bet. And if you think about advertising conventions, they hit really well with that clear and compelling message, and they keep top of mind with those pokey ads because they're funny.
They are funny.
So when did they first start with their poking the bear adverts?
Well, the Pepsi challenge, you mean, yes?
When they moved on from the Pepsi challenge and they started to do their celebrity stuff, and then they started underneath their celebrity stuff, they started to do those quite witty, funny adverts. The one I can think of is when Coke came out with their consumers drink 4 times more Coke than Pepsi. And then that little kid stood by the vending machine and uses the 2 cans of Pepsi to get to 2 cans of Coke to get to the Pepsi button.
Brilliant.
I thought that was really quite clever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ever since they started the Pepsi Challenge, really, it's an option for them to, rather than do that kind of faux science taste test thing side by side, to just poke fun at Coke. So I think it's been a consistent one for them. Maybe they haven't deployed it consistently, but yeah, I think it kind of caught on when they started doing the Pepsi Challenge, because then they were a challenger brand.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you're a challenger brand, you can be a challenger brand mentally, whether or not you're, declining or you're growing or you're market leader, you can have that challenger brand mentality. I mean, another example is like Oatly, right? Oatly's the challenger brand for milk, not for oat drinks. So it's quite an interesting position for brands to take. But I think they have done it every now and again. And you showed me that one yesterday and I remembered it. It was brilliant.
The Halloween one.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
With the can of Coke with the showing, sort of peeling back and showing that it's Pepsi underneath. That was quite funny.
Yeah. So it used to be, I think even maybe the ASA used to have a rule against you couldn't talk about your competitors in your ad. Perhaps if it's not legislated against, I think it was a convention.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't give your competitors free advertising, basically, by mentioning them in your ads. You just focus on you and your product and your benefits or your brand or whatever.
Yeah.
But these kind of side-by-sides or poking fun at the competitors, I like it because it's sort of like meta in a way. It's like, oh, we're advertising. We're not pretending. It feels in a way real because it reflects consumers' real choice, doesn't it?
Feels a bit fourth wall-y, like you're in on the joke.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think maybe do you think the change in being able to use your competitor was the price comparison with the supermarkets? Maybe that broke the where you could say, this is my basket, and I think it was Asda that first did it.
Asda Price. Yeah, they did the basket check, didn't they? Now everyone does it. Yeah, they compare it to Aldi, don't they?
So I'm wondering if that was the kind of breaking point that we could start to say actually who our competitor directly is.
Yeah, maybe in this country. I think in America they probably don't have as much restriction in terms of free for all, isn't it? Sorry, America.
A bit like the Wild West over there.
So, but yeah, I think. I quite like it when a challenger brand, or at least like a smaller brand, is kind of trying to like poke fun at the big guys.
Yeah. I also think consumers are a lot more savvy than we were when we were kids with literally 2 channels. Your source of entertainment and also source of information was very limited, whereas kids and teens now have unlimited amounts of information, so they're not stupid enough to think that there isn't any other competitors for
of course not. Yeah.
So I think that whole adage of not giving them free advertising is out there anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, certainly when I worked on Dove, we used to do side by side. We called it objective truth. So the sort of subjective truth, which is the testimonials from people who've used Dove and love it. And then there's the objective kind of tests of harshness or pH level. And we used to say the name of the competitors in our little litmus test. The famous one is the litmus test, isn't it? Side by side. Yeah. Well, sometimes this is your average soap and this is Dove. And you're like, oh my God, poking fun. I like it. And also I love humorous ads anyway.
So the new ad that's come out is really interesting. So who was the agency that did that one?
If it's for Pepsi, I think it is BBDO.
When I first watched it, I was a little bit shocked because it is quite unorthodox and a little bit subversive. So we'll run the ad now so that you're all in on it.
They're on to us!
Should I park in the back?
We help people sneak Pepsi into places that don't serve it.
What if they catch us?
We have a sports car. Hey man, this doesn't make burger taste better.
Yo, what the f?
I thought Wendy was a ginger.
To enhance the flavor.
Where is everybody?
Sunday.
Do not make eye contact.
Nobody here wants your Pepsi.
It's really good.
Oh, that is good.
Say it into the napkin dispenser.
Here's some Pepsi for some extra flavor.
So get the f*** out. Come on. Okay? It just tastes better. Go.
For those of you listening, the advert is called Undercover Cups, and it features Pepsi's crack squad of undercover cops who would pull into a diner car park with their Pepsi cars and pull out a drink that's branded with the diner, but with Pepsi kind of woven into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would swap the cups and of whatever the generic drink that they were drinking and walk out without it.
Yeah, so diners include McDonald's,
Yep.
Burger King and Wendy's and Chick-fil-A as well. So all very famous fast food restaurants in America. So it's all sorts of brands in there. So as well as Coca-Cola, there's all lots of other brands competing.
But they did say it does fit really, really well with food positioning. So they kept in line with that. So it's a little bit uncomfortable to watch when you see them run into a diner and there's some poor chap sat there and they pinch his drink and he's like, what? No, what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's well branded though. You do know it's for Pepsi because all of the cups or the cops are the cars massively branded and you've got the jackets say Pepsi on them. So yeah, you know it's for Pepsi.
The Pepsi chase cars were an absolute hit, racking up 5 million views on YouTube.
That's brilliant.
But interestingly enough, that kept Pepsi in the online conversation because they were vying for Dr. Pepper because Dr. Pepper surpassed Pepsi. So they're now number 3.
Wowzers, yeah.
So yeah, very, very cool advert, I thought. And very interesting with that whole subversive.
Yeah, it's massively subversive. It's unconventional. It's not really an expected ad. I mean, real people, not like advertisers and marketers, expect adverts to be like, here's my product, it's great, go and buy it. That's basically advertising in like consumers' mind.
Weirdo run into a store and nick your drink.
Did you ever watch The Apprentice? Just a bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the advertising episodes?
Oh, I hated them.
It was just so cringe, wasn't it? It's like, and it really made me smug because it's like, oh, it's not so easy to write good ads, is it, mate?
Just come off one on just off the top of your head. No.
And they normally have some bod from some big agency like judging it or something. It's hilarious. Anyway, sorry, tangent, but it is unconventional and it's subversive and it's funny.
It is really funny.
I
was very interested when we watched the trace, though. I was expecting, the top part where it was talking about uncomfortable or angry. It's really, really mild. But the happiness was huge.
So System 1 tested it. System 1, an agency that I have great respect for in terms of creative testing. They tested it and it was just a huge green, massive wall of happiness. And it's just brilliant. If I made that ad and I saw that trace, I would be delighted. Very cool. I really, really like it. I mean, we then went on a tangent about why have Cannes introduced a separate humour category?
Yeah.
Which shouldn't ads be entertaining at least? I mean, they don't have to be like a stand-up routine, but like that's the goal, is to get into people's heads. And one very, very effective way is entertaining people.
Yeah. And I think that the entertainment side of it is becoming more and more popular, important, because there's so much content out there. And social media encourages you to watch rather than you'd want to watch rather than scroll. So I think this idea of humour and funny and slightly subversive gets that cut through.
Massively. And it's, it is, again, a little poke at the sort of earnestness of purpose advertising, let's say, or, Coke is warm. It's not funny, though.
No.
It's warm, it's family, and it makes you kind of feel good. But yeah, so it's I hope it works for them, to be honest, because I think they should be rewarded for that. But yeah, like you say about in terms of how it's created, it's not just a TV ad, it's very internet-y, for want of a better word.
It makes you want to watch it and see what the end is, because it is so entertaining.
Yeah, it's got a story, but there's beats and it's memeable as well.
And for those older listeners out there, will remember it's very like the Tango ad.
One of my favourites.
Which is really, really funny.
You know, when you've been tangoed.
Yeah. But slightly less aggressive, I think, the Pepsi one.
Well, I was remembering that they had to ban that ad because kids in the playground used to smack each other around the face with it.
People used to paint themselves orange and stuff.
It's brilliant.
The 80s was wild, man. Wild.
It was a fun, happy, more innocent time, perhaps. Anyway, so that was a lovely deep dive into Coke versus Pepsi. Do you have anything else to add, Liz?
I think so. Are you going to give Pepsi the sign off for their new ad?
I definitely would sign that off if I was their client. For sure, it's brilliant, and well done the agency for getting that through. It does remind me of those. There was a whole spat of ads where it's sort of like camera, we're capturing people's right reaction. I seem to remember this American cereal brand like responded to people's tweets, like exaggerated tweets saying, oh, I wish I could have like a lifetime supply of these things, and they just like rocked up to their house with a truck full of things, captured their reactions. That was years ago now. but yes, I give it the sign off because
it's good.
I think for the client to have bought it and the agency to have made it, I know that a lot of effort has gone into that. But also I hope it works for them because Pepsi have been in decline.
Yep.
And so, I think they deserve a little uplift. Coca-Cola can't have all the money, for goodness sake. Liz, how about you? Do you sign it off?
I would definitely sign it off, mainly because it is entertaining and it's genuinely funny, and everyone's in on the joke. I think that they've executed it really well in that it's not smug, it's not, that all those kind of, some of the attempts to be funny have come off smug and condescending, whereas this one's actually genuinely funny and everyone's in on it. So I think definitely give it the sign off.
It's all good fun, isn't it? Are you going to drink more Pepsi now?
Oh, man. That's a hard one. No. I'm a definite Diet Coke.
You're a Diet Coke person, are you?
I am. Okay. Although the cafe here only sells Pepsi. So
do you sometimes have to
I do have to suck it up.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know. I've just been perhaps just so brainwashed to believe that Coca-Cola is better, but
I think maybe that's my overseas growing up. With Pepsi, we didn't have.
You didn't have Pepsi, you just Coca-Cola.
And then when we came back over here, to be honest, in the 80s, it's a bit rough. And we had those, Bars Cola, which was really rough. And Panda Cola.
I remember that.
Do you remember Virgin Cola?
Oh, Lordy, that was a mistake.
Bad.
It had a shapely bottle, didn't it? Like a lady. No, that was, no.
Yeah, so I'll stick with my Diet Pepsi. Thank you very much.
Diet Pepsi, you said it.
Oh my God, Diet Coke.
It's happening, Liz. It's happening.
That heuristic is working. Right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you soon.
Well, Liz, that's another fine podcast in the bag. I hope you enjoyed the chit chat and found something useful.
Follow us on socials at the Sign Off Podcast, where a new episode is out every 2 weeks. Send your questions and comments to signoffpodcast@gmail.com.
See you next time.